Good afternoon. Welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Community Development and Regulatory Services Committee for today, April 15th, Tax Day. Hopefully everyone has passed that point in their day today and happy to be here. Instead, we have a relatively lengthy agenda of 19 items. To make things easier, I'm going to move the consent agenda, items 10 through 13. Are there any items anyone would like to pull off the agenda? 10 through 13. Seeing none, I'll move the consent agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Those items are approved. We'll then move on to item number 1, which is the DC Group Expansion Tax Increment Plan and Modification number 2. Carrie, welcome.
Thank you. It's nice to see you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Carrie Flack with Business Development. DC Group is one of the nation's largest providers of maintenance and repair service to users of uninterruptible power systems for users such as governments, hospitals, critical data centers, and similar users. Uninterruptible power systems are a critical element in the technology revolution and are themselves extremely high technology equipment with demanding maintenance and servicing requirements. DC Group's engineers and maintenance technicians are based throughout the nation and provide immediate service for their customers. They are also a leader in preventative maintenance, repair, replacement, and reconditioning. As such, they maintain a large inventory of major parts and equipment in order to be able to rapidly supply their customers to allow minimal downtime from any system failures. DC Group has outgrown their current facilities, but desire to remain at their current location at 1977 West River Road. They currently have 62 employees and plan to grow by approximately 33 employees for a total of 95 employees at this site. The proposed project consists of demolishing about 10,400 square feet of the existing facility, renovating approximately 15,500 square feet, and constructing an additional 23,500 square feet with an 86-stall parking structure. The building addition will provide for additional office and warehouse space. The estimated total development cost of the project is approximately $7.3 million, and their developer equity includes almost $2 million. The sources and uses are identified in your staff report, and I won't go over those specifically. The developer's original TIF application requested about $750,000 in pay-as-you-go TIF assistance. We did complete a blight analysis, which determined that the site qualifies as a redevelopment TIF district. The proposed development project will eliminate blight, provide 33 new jobs, and would not occur at this location without public financial assistance due to the extraordinary cost involved in redevelopment in an industrial urban location. CPED has determined that $451,500 in tax assistance is justifiable. Such assistance will provide the project, will be provided to the project through a pay-as-you-go revenue note. The note will carry an interest rate of 5.5% over 17 years of tax increment collections. The note will reimburse DC Group for qualifying rehabilitation and site costs. There is additional public financing for this project, which consists of the first application for a $200,000 loan from the newly created Grow North program. The intent of the program is to bring jobs and businesses to North Minneapolis and provide an incentive to growing Northside firms to hire Northside Minneapolis residents. Loan forgiveness will be based on the number of new Northside resident employees. A new Northside resident employee means a new hire that resides in North Minneapolis and is employed full-time at a living wage for 12 months, or an employee who becomes an owner-occupied homeowner in North Minneapolis. To qualify for loan forgiveness at a rate of $5,000 per Northside resident employee, a minimum of 15 jobs or homeowners must be achieved. DC Group will receive $75,000 in loan forgiveness if they achieve this minimum goal. The entire loan will be forgiven if 40 Northside resident employees is achieved. The loan will have a fixed rate of 4% and a maximum term of 10 years for any portion of the loan that's not forgiven and will be secured with a subordinate mortgage. DC Group is also in the process of submitting an application for a $75,000 loan from the city's Business Development Fund. The BDF financial tool provides an opportunity to earn prepayment credits for each Minneapolis resident hired within the first 3 years of the loan closing, with a maximum credit of half the BDF loan. DC Group will receive a maximum prepayment credit of $37,500 for hiring 12 Minneapolis residents at living wage. BDF loans must be leveraged with conventional financing, and these hires for the prepayment credit qualification cannot count toward the hires for the North Minneapolis loan forgiveness. In addition, DC Group is submitting an application for $50,000 from the city's 2% loan program, which provides financing to small businesses to purchase equipment and/or make building improvements. The BDF and 2% loans do not require city council authorization, provided the loans meet council-approved guidelines. And lastly, DC Group has received approval of $514,000 from the Minnesota Department of Employment and Economic Development Job Creation Fund. They have also applied for a deed environmental grant in the amount of $383,000 and applied for a Hennepin County Transit-Oriented Development Grant in the amount of $85,000. Total public assistance for the DC Group from federal, state, and city sources is about $1.8 million, depending on the grant awards, and that is towards the total development cost of $7.3 million. The goal is to commence construction immediately upon closing early summer, and the project should be completed by fall 2015. The Development Finance Committee recommended approval, and their letter has also been submitted to you. Their recommendation included a suggestion for a TIF recapture provision should you deem this appropriate. The terms for the redevelopment contract are attached to your staff report. DC Group is a long-standing Northside employer, and we are very excited to support the expansion of their project. I'd be glad to answer any questions or introduce the applicant.
Are there any questions for Ms. Flack? I just have one if no one else does. I'm wondering, and perhaps it's you or perhaps Ms. Pulaski or Casey, you mentioned that there was a blight analysis done?
Yes.
Yet this is an existing business operating, doing really well. So this isn't really a negative term as much as a term needed to describe the qualifications for creating a redevelopment district. Isn't that true?
Yes, it is a qualification, but because of the conditions of the building and because of the conditions of where they're going to be expanding on the property, the soil conditions there and geotechnical issues, it does qualify for new construction.
I just wanted to point out that calling something blighted doesn't necessarily mean something is terrible, disastrous, or awful, as much as a qualification to set up a redevelopment district. Isn't that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Are there other comments or questions for Ms. Flack? Seeing none, thank you for your report. We'll open up the public hearing on item number 1, which is the DC Group expansion, tax increment plan, and modification number 2 to the redevelopment plan. Is there anyone here to speak to this issue?
Would you like me to introduce the applicant?
No, if they want to speak,
Okay.
they can get up and speak. If not, we got 19 items on our
All
agenda
right,
today.
thank you.
We're excited, but Councilmember Yang is here, and if someone wants to introduce themselves, they can feel free. This is a public hearing on item number 1. Councilmember Yang.
Thank you, Madam Chair and council members. My name is Belong Yang. I'm the council member for Ward 5. I'm very excited about this project. Very excited that the DC Group chose to stay and grow in North Minneapolis in the Ward 5 riverfront area. And they were founded in 1969, just to point that out. They plan to build a gorgeous 21st century building at this important gateway to North Minneapolis at the corner of West Broadway and West River Road, signaling to all manufacturing in the area that manufacturing can be pretty and companies can invest in North Minneapolis and can make the place a better place. So I'm excited about that. The DC Group, again, plans to have about 30 plus employees that they're going to employ in this area, and hopefully, at some point they will grow that number as well, bringing their total staff to about 100. And, the goal in North Minneapolis is, in the next 5 years, we want to grow the jobs there to about 1,000. That's a big goal. And so, I'm just glad that, we have this first applicant for the Grow North project, or the Grow North program. I'm proud to support this investment with city financial assistance. I thank my council colleagues for having the foresight before I came into office to establish the Grow North program and to support business recruitment and expansion in North Minneapolis. I urge members of this committee to support this staff recommendation for TIF assistance and the Grow North program support through a forgivable loan and through the Minneapolis Advantage Homebuyer Assistance. And, thank you so much. Really support this. And hopefully council member or President Johnson will speak to this as well. But I'm going to say my piece, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else here to speak to this issue? Mr. Herman, welcome.
Madam Chair, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Frankly, when I was first asked to work with the DC group by one of my other partners. We looked at a comparative analysis of going to other places, and all of the development advisors, and I'm one who always advocates with every client to stay in the city. We said economically this is a tough one, and you would be better off buying some office warehouse building in a suburban site. The particular use where we do this reconditioning doesn't require high ceiling heights, and those office warehouse buildings are pretty readily available. But the company's president charged Charlie with figuring out a way to try to make this happen and stay on the site, because the company has been there since the 60s. And I'm thrilled that they're staying. It's a pretty complicated project. You've already heard about the involvement of the city and a couple of other things that we're still going to come through the process on, because the soil conditions are awful up there. Not so much due to pollution as the sawmilling history of the area and the filling of the wetland areas that were along the river. But I also wanted to particularly point out that we've also attracted a $3.5 million new market allocation, which is a very substantial benefit to making this work. And those are worth, round numbers, about 20% of the allocation. In subsidy, you have to stay in the operation for a minimum of 7 years. But we had a goal of trying to cover half of the disproportionate costs in order to stay at the location, and we're just about right on target for that. It's a very exciting project. I also want to say that the company has jumped in with both feet on the idea of trying to recruit to the north, and we had an exceptionally good meeting with your staff on the job recruitment, and I want to tell you that I was very impressed by the work of these staff people and their ideas, and so we're quite excited about that. We're already in the recruitment process, but I think it's a very good project. I've been very happy with the support we've gotten from both the council president, the new council member from the 5th Ward, and it's an exciting project to kind of put the other bookend on that block with the Coloplast headquarters.
Thank you for your testimony, Mr.
And
Herman.
I have the company CFO and I have our architect here if there are any technical questions.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here to speak to this issue? Anyone? Anyone? We'll close the public hearing. Council President Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and just very briefly, I'm so pleased also that DC Group is willing to reinvest in our community and to turn an industrial park that was facing the wrong way, away from the riverfront, to take advantage of that beautiful riverfront location that you have and make that investment at that very key corner, as Councilmember Yang said, I think is going to lead to further investments doing exactly like you're doing, taking advantage of that riverfront, and that's what we want to see. So thank you very much.
Thank you for being here today, Council President Johnson. Further comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll move approval of the staff recommendation, including the Development Finance Committee comment with regard to the TIF recapture, and want to thank Kathy Pulaski and her team for the work they've done on the Grow North program. Love for the elected officials to take credit for that, but that's just simply not true. This is something that our staff has worked on for a long period of time. They have been the ones to say we need an additional tool and asked for our thoughts on how to do it. We didn't come up with it, but we shouldn't be claiming credit for it as much as thanking our staff for the work that they've done. Further comments and questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That item is approved. Thank you, Ms. Flack, for your work.
Thank you.
We'll then move on to item number 2, which is the Lake and Nicollet redevelopment plan. Mr. Frank, welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair, committee members. Good afternoon. As you know, the City of Minneapolis has a long-held vision for the Lake and Nicollet area that includes reopening Nicollet across Lake Street and the Midtown Greenway, and redeveloping the property on both sides of reopened Nicollet Avenue. City staff has been working over the past few years to advance this effort, and I'd like to acknowledge some of you, hope this isn't too embarrassing, Council Members Bender, Cano, Glidden, Goodman, Reich, Warsami, and their staffs, your staffs, and the staff from CPED, Public Works, Finance, Communications, and the Mayor's Office, who've been working hard on this project. The next step in the city's effort is the creation of the redevelopment plan in front of you today. The plan establishes a new redevelopment project, identifies its boundary, redevelopment objectives, land use provisions, and properties that may be acquired by the city. All these elements are shown in the plan. We followed the required process and schedule to establish the redevelopment plan. We sent out the plan for 45 days of public comment on February 28th. The Planning Commission recommended approval to you on March 24th, and we published notice of today's public hearing on April 3rd. As of today, we have received comments from the Lindale Neighborhood Association, Sears Holdings Corporation, and Hennepin County, and we have shared those comments with the clerk, so I hope you have them. Several of the comments mention eminent domain. I'd like to just comment on that briefly if I could. Any possible future decision about eminent domain would rely on a different state statute than this redevelopment plan, and blight findings for eminent domain would be more stringent. This plan is about tools and objectives, and we will spend the next months working to be more specific. In Sears Holding Corporation's comments, we're asked to remove all references to blight in the plan, and we can't do that. We did remove one reference to the Kmart store as a blighting influence, but we need to make findings about blight to establish this plan. Also, Sears's comments ask us to commit to make an equitable financial proposal to them, and that is premature. We will treat all owners and stakeholders fairly and consistent with the law, and we look forward to working with Sears as partners. We had several meetings with them last week to get this started. Almost done. Next steps, once the plan is in place, include continued discussions with property owners and stakeholders and working towards site control to make the project happen. Thank you, Madam Chair, committee members. I'm here for comments, questions.
Are there questions for Mr. Frank? Mr. Frank, I have a couple of questions. I want to clarify, Sears Kmart is not an owner of any property in this area, isn't that correct?
Madam Chair, they're here to comment for themselves, but the answer to your question is that's correct.
And this document does not contemplate any issue of taking with regard to eminent domain, is that correct?
Yes, Madam Chair, that is correct.
Okay. Further comments, questions? Seeing none, thank you for your report. We'll open up the public hearing on item number 2, which is approving a resolution which creates a new redevelopment project to facilitate the redevelopment activities supporting the city's goals in this area, including opening Nicollet across Lake Street and the Midtown Greenway. Is there anyone here to speak to this issue? Please step forward, state your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon. My name is Martin Fallon. I'm an attorney with the Maslin Law Firm. I represent Sears Holding Corporation and the Lake Street Kmart. I'm here today to formally introduce our written comments, which were received yesterday by the committee, and to introduce 2 representatives from Sears Holding. With me today, Mr. Tom Mankey, who's the regional district manager, and with me is the Lake Street store manager, Mr. Dan Lawler. Mr. Mankey would like to offer some comments following on the written comments we put in yesterday. But before Mr. Mankey speaks, I would like to just take an opportunity to thank the officials and who met with us last week, including the mayor. As you probably are well aware, a number of corporate officials flew in from Chicago, and the mayor made time out of her busy schedule to take time to meet with us. We appreciate that, as did Council President Johnson, Council Member Bender, and several other members of the staff. I particularly want to call out and thank Mr. Frank, who's been more than generous with his time and has listened to our concerns and worked with us, and we continue to hope to work together going forward.
Great, thank you.
With that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Mankey.
Mr. Mankey, please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Tom Mankey, and I am on behalf of Kmart, and our address is 3333 Beverly Road, Hoffman Estates, Illinois, 60179. Good afternoon, Chairperson Goodman, City Council members. As I said, my name is Tom Mankey. I'm the district manager for the 10 West Lake Street Kmart, and I am joined by Dan Lawler, the store manager. I'm here today speaking on behalf of Kmart. Kmart supports the city's vision for revitalizing the Nicollet Avenue and Lake Street Business District, and we're eager to continue to be a valuable neighborhood partner in the local community as we have been for the past 35 years. Kmart's Lake Street store opened in 1978, and since then, the store has benefited the community in many ways. The store provides approximately 100 jobs that pay good wages, and a majority of the employees reside in Minneapolis. Kmart contributes, on average, more than $1 million annually in sales and employment taxes. In addition to these benefits, Kmart provides the community with a clean, safe place to buy affordable products and services. Neighborhood families have come to rely on Kmart for their needs, and we've enjoyed a long-standing relationship with our customers in nearby neighborhoods. We remain committed to continue serving their needs into the future. Although Kmart conceptually supports the plan's objectives, we do have a concern. This uncertainty surrounding the project is hurting our ongoing business and operations. Already, our customers are wondering for how long they can continue to shop at our Lake Street store. Our employees are concerned whether their jobs are secure. Despite this concern, Kmart stands fully committed to remain in Minneapolis to serve the needs of the community in its current location or at a redeveloped site, as long as the city works in good faith to ensure that a future Lake Street and Nicollet Avenue store will be viable. Kmart embraces the plan's vision of revitalizing Nicollet Avenue and is dedicated to do what it can to see the project succeed. Kmart's ability to contribute to the project's success, however, rests on the Lake Street store's continuing success. We look forward to being your partner as we continue to operate the Lake Street store and serving the community needs. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to comment on this issue? Mr. Hines, welcome.
Madam Chairman. I'm Mark Hines. I'm the Executive Director of the Lindale Neighborhood Association. Our address is 3537 Nicollet Avenue. I just want to, on behalf of the neighborhood, and the committee has our letter in favor of this, I just want to tell you from a community standpoint how excited people are for the action that you're going to take today. In the time I've been at Lindale, the question that I am always asked more than any other question is, when are we going to reopen Nicollet? And for the folks at Kmart, it's not about Kmart, and it's not about Kmart being there. It is about reopening our main street. It's an incredibly important thing. We've had many property owners over the years who have not been sure about how to invest in their property because they're not sure what's going to happen in the area. With 35 transit access project coming, with this potentially happening, with streetcars along Nicollet, potentially in the Greenway, this is an area of the city that is ready to bloom. All we need is some stuff to move forward. I would strongly encourage you guys to make this one of the city's top priorities and to use all of the tools that you have available to make this happen and all of the resources that you have available to make this happen. There's nothing that you can do. There's nothing that you can do that the neighborhood won't support in order to reopen Nicollet Avenue. This is by far the top priority for the neighborhood and something that people really want to have happen. There are a couple of things that we would like you to include in the redevelopment plan itself. The first is the Lindale Neighborhood Business Association is actually the recognized neighborhood business association for the area just south of Lake Street. We're not included actually as one of the public entities in the plan. We would like to be called out there. We have a long-standing goal. Many of you who know the area know that the Metro Transit has a large bus garage facility farther down. We would like, as part of this process, to look at the possibility of relocating that bus garage, which is essentially a large cavern under the redevelopment, any new redevelopment in the area, because that would allow us to redevelop an entire block currently south of the planned area. The reason why we think that's important is that if you spend time walking south from Lake Street, what you'll notice is that the bus garage really kind of just kills any pedestrian connection between Lake Street and the area south. We know that it's one of those that there's a lot of things that have to be looked at before that could even possibly happen. We've talked with Metro Transit about it. All we want is it to be included in this process as something that looks feasible. It'd be very similar to the bus garage downtown, because all you need essentially is a large underground place to park and work on the buses. So we'd like that included in the area. We also would like it explicitly mentioned in the plan that we would like larger plate office. One of the things that's very hard as we try to attract businesses to the area is finding anything for businesses larger than 20 to 30 employees. There just are not spaces in this area for larger businesses. Any kind of redevelopment that happens in the area should include opportunities to take advantage of. There is access to 35W, to Lake Street, to Transit, so that we can have larger businesses in there. It's an important part of the neighborhood's efforts to become a sustainable neighborhood. So we'd like to include that there. And then it's been really great working with Mr. Frank on this process. The neighborhoods have been involved, the business associations have been involved. We just want to continue that. So thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to you guys taking action on this.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else here to speak to this issue? Anyone? Anyone? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. We've been joined by Councilmember Bender. I'm just going to invite her to say something if she'd like. She doesn't have to.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll just briefly say that, this is my number one priority and a huge priority for all of the neighborhoods surrounding the site. I met with Sears Holding Corp. last week and reiterated to them that they are a welcome part of the community. Obviously, it's a financial decision for the company, being part of a redevelopment project there, but the community loves the store, wants to see that kind of retail stay in the neighborhood, and that's my commitment to you as well. So I look forward to working with everyone. I've also gotten a lot of questions about a redevelopment plan and some nervousness about feeling like decisions have been made, and wanted to reiterate as well that we don't have site control. There's nothing to plan for yet, but once there is, hopefully very soon, we will be able to start a public outreach process and really engage all the stakeholders in a vision for the future of this important part of town.
Further comments, questions on item number 2? Seeing none, Councilmember Quincy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to move approval of this item and the staff recommendations.
Item number 2 has been moved for approval. Further comments and questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That item is approved. Thank you all for being here today. We'll move on then to item number 3. Ms. Shokwas, perhaps you could just only speak to the changes rather than going through all of the House issues.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I am Sherry Shokwas from CPED Housing, and I am here before you again on Green Homes North Round 3, recommending $949,608,000 in awards. The difference from last time is there are 2 projects that will not be funded at this time. We expected an additional $190,000 committed by the Family Housing Fund would be available this spring. It is not. If it becomes available later this summer, we will be back before you with those additional 2 homes. The 2 developers that have felt most comfortable waiting to develop homes. One is a newer Green Homes North participant, Urban Homeworks. They are building a home that this will be the first time they're developing this home. And the second is Art Space, and they have changed from a very modern design to a much more traditional design with the working very closely with the neighborhood groups. So with that, I thank you for this second opportunity to talk to you about Green Homes North, and I'll take any questions.
Are there any questions for Ms. Shokwas on item number 3? Thank you for your report. Seeing none, we'll open the public hearing on item number 3, which is the Green Homes North Round 3 funding awards and land sales. Is there anyone here to speak to this issue? Anyone? Anyone? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. I'll move approval since we've had a lengthy conversation about this just a cycle ago. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That item is approved. Thank you for being here today. We'll then move on to our licenses and consumer services items, starting with item number 4, which is an application for on-sale liquor license upgrade and expansion of premise for 612 Brew. Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The 612 Brew LLC at 945 Broadway is seeking a minor change to their license. They're going to upgrade from a Class E to a C2, which will allow them to have 3 musicians play there, predominantly on Friday nights. And they are also doing a permanent expansion of premises to add some outdoor seating. They will be adding 24 seats outside on a patio. They currently have 43 seats inside, well under their maximum occupancy of 105 inside. The normal police review of this application has been completed. A public hearing is required for the upgrade in license. 43 notices were mailed to residents and property owners and to the Northeast Park Neighborhood Association and the Northeast Minneapolis Chamber of Commerce. We received no responses from that mailing, and the application meets all of the requirements, and staff recommends approval.
Are there any questions for Mr. Wilson? Seeing none, I'll open the public hearing on item number 4, which is application for on-sale liquor Class C2 for 612 Brew. Is there anyone here to speak to this issue? Anyone? Anyone? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Councilmember Reich.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I happily move approval.
Approval has been moved. Further comments, questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That item is approved. On to item number 5. Mr. Wilson.
Item number 5, Madam Chair, is the Fujiya Restaurant at 600 West Lake Street. They are also upgrading their license from a Class E to a Class D, which will allow a single musician to play there. Fujiya has been located at 600 West Lake Street for quite a while, since 2001. A public hearing is required. 257 notices were mailed to owners and residents and the neighborhood group and business association. We received no responses from that mailing and contact, and staff recommendation is to approve.
Are there further comments for Mr. Wilson? Seeing none, we'll open the public hearing on item number 5, Fujiya, application to approve an on-sale liquor Class D with Sunday sales. Is there anyone here to speak to this issue? Anyone? Anyone? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Councilmember Kano.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the approval as recommended by the staff report.
Approval has been moved. Further comments, questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That item is approved. We're on to item number 6, Lucky Dragon Restaurant. Mr. Wilson.
Madam Chair, the Lucky Dragon Restaurant at 1827 Riverside is seeking to upgrade from an on-sale wine and strong beer license Class B to an on-sale liquor Class B license with Sunday sales. Lucky Dragon has operated at this location under the current ownership since 1999. They have operated in compliance with all laws and requirements. The normal police review for this application has been completed, and the police are also recommending approval of this application. A public hearing is required. We did mail 224 notices to residents and property owners. Also, the neighborhood and business associations were notified, and we posted several multiple residential dwellings in the area. We did receive 2 responses to that mailing, and both of them are in support. Staff's recommendation is to approve the application.
Are there comments or questions for Mr. Wilson? Seeing none, we'll open the public hearing on item number 6, applications for on-sale liquor Class B license upgrade for Lucky Dragon Restaurant. Is there anyone here to speak to this issue? Anyone? Anyone? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Councilmember Warsame.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To approve and take the recommendations of the staff.
Approval has been made by Councilmember Warsame. Further comments? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item is approved. We'll move into our quasi-judicial regulatory hearings. Councilmember Fry.
Thank you. We have 2 items on our agenda for today. It's numbers 7 and 8. The first one is a rental dwelling license related to 3934 and 3936 Nokomis Avenue. And it's my understanding that Ms. Dowling is here to speak for the staff. This person. Okay.
Good afternoon,
Good
Madam
afternoon.
Chair, committee members. The property involved in this action is 3934 and 3936 Nokomis Avenue South. This is a residential 2-unit dwelling. The respondent in this matter, Amanda Przinski, is the owner of record for this property and obtained a license to operate this property as a rental business in November 2008. The rental license has been current since 2008, however, it was not paid for the 2013-2014 calendar year. On June 11th, an inspection was scheduled for both units. The owner failed to appear, however, the inspector was able to gain access to Unit 1 and was able to conduct an exterior inspection of Unit Number 2. The inspection revealed numerous violations, including but not limited to installing smoke detectors, repairing the carbon monoxide detectors, repairing the interior walls, repairing the illegal wiring in the basement junction box, and repairing the garage. The compliance date established on the orders was on or before June 23, 2013 and August 1, 2013. An appointment for a reinspection was sent for August 13, 2013. The owner did not appear, and thus the inspector was unable to gain access to either unit. A reinspection was then set for September 19, 2013. Again, the owner did not appear, and the inspector was not able to gain access. An administrative citation was issued for $250 on September 19, 2013 for Unit 1. The owner failed to pay or appeal that citation, which is currently a pending assessment against the property for the 2014 levy year. A reinspection was sent for October 8, 2013, which the owner again failed to appear. The repeat missed inspection appointments are in violation of the Licensing Standard 8 of Minneapolis Code of Ordinance 244.1910.
On October 15, 2013, a director's determination of noncompliance was sent to the owner. The owner was given 10 days to come into compliance by allowing the reinspection. The owner failed to allow a reinspection of the property, and on November 18, 2013, a notice of revocation was sent to the owner via certified mail. The notice was returned to the city as unclaimed and unable to forward to the owner. Notice of the pending revocation was also posted on the rental dwelling and given the owner 15 days to appeal this matter. The owner did not appeal the revocation action. At this time, the city is requesting revocation of this license, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Dowling. Just looking over the report right now, it appears that there's 4 instances in which the owner just simply didn't show up to the inspection, and then the 5th instance would have been their opportunity to appeal, and they didn't show up for that either. Is that correct?
Madam Chair, committee members, that is correct.
All right. It appears relatively cut and dry, but before I open this to the public hearing, there's an introductory statement just that gives the outline as to what can and can't be discussed here. This is a quasi-judicial license hearing for which this committee is limited by law to hearing argument from the property owner or the owner's representative, but is prohibited from considering any further evidence or taking any further testimony. This means that you're required to limit your comments to arguments specifically addressing the evidence or testimony introduced before the hearing officer, which is part of the record that is already before us. If you didn't appear at the staff revocation recommendation to the hearing officer, you've waived your right to introduce evidence or testimony into the record and must limit your arguments to addressing the existing record. So again, you may not offer, and we may not consider any new or additional evidence. That being said, and the parameters being set, is the owner and or the representative here today? Before I bring you up, are there any further questions right now for Ms. Dowling? Come on up. Please state your name and your address for the record, please.
My name is Donald Hammond. I'm a realtor with Keller Williams, address 1740, 116th Avenue Northwest, Coon Rapids.
So I understand you're a realtor. Are you a representative for, I believe it's Amanda Przinski?
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay. Please try and limit your testimony today to facts that are already on the record, which is pretty much bare, but give it your best crack.
The facts are we're in the process of trying to sell the property. We request a 90-day extension so that we can file unlawful detainer to remove a tenant that's uncooperative and then comply with truth in housing and then sell the property. It would no longer be a problem with the landlord or the property for the city at that point. It would be sold to a new owner. So all we ask is a 90-day extension to be able to complete that process.
So, Mr. Hammond, right?
Yes.
That would be outside of what we can even consider here today. Do you have any additional facts that would clarify or perhaps refute that which is already on the record?
I do not.
Okay. Thank you so much. Do we have any further questions or comments from other council members? Chair Goodman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Fusey, we can't consider that, isn't that correct? I mean, that would just basically be like allowing them to keep the unlawful occupancy under our own rules.
Madam Chair and committee members, yeah, I largely believe that's a correct statement. Certainly nothing would prevent a sale of the property simply by the action that's being requested by the staff here today.
So our action would just simply mean there would not be a legal rental license, and they're already trying to evict the tenant.
That's correct, and certainly removing the rental license will aid in the process of vacating the premises.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So I think I can speak for most of us when I say I really do hope that property is ultimately sold and we do have new tenants in there and that the upkeep and the issues pointed out by the inspector are taken care of. That being said, we really can't consider any of the additional evidence, and I trust that it won't have any impact on the sale of the property. I move to adopt the staff recommendation on item number 7. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And the staff recommendation is adopted. Moving on to item number 8. You taking care of this one too? You're doing a great job.
I'm back again. Thank you. All right. Again, good afternoon. The property involved in this action is 2601 Fillmore Street Northeast. This is a single-unit licensed property. The respondent in this matter is Jerry Dretch. He's the owner of record along with Don Dretch, who obtained a license to operate this property as a rental business in September 1999. On March 7, 2013, an inspection was conducted which revealed numerous exterior and interior violations, including but not limited to illegal basement occupancy, illegal basement appliances, unopenable windows, overflow pipe on the water heater, repairing of the exterior stairs, and repairing of the roof overhang. Orders were issued to the owner which required the repairs to be made by April 10, 2013. Between April 2013 and September 2013, there was communication between the owner and the inspector, as well as multiple confirmed appointments for the inspector to conduct re-inspections. However, there was no communication from the owner to the inspector to allow access to the property. The repeated missed inspection appointments are in violation of the Licensing Standard 8 of Minneapolis Code of Ordinance 244.1910. On September 23, 2013, a director's determination of noncompliance was sent to the owner. The owner was given 10 days to come into compliance by allowing the required inspections of the property. On November 25, 2013, the property was scheduled for a re-inspection. The inspector arrived for the appointment, however, was not able to gain access to the property again. On January 14, 2014, a notice of revocation was sent to the owner via certified mail. The notice was returned to the city as unclaimed and unable to forward to the owner. Notice that the pending revocation was also posted to the rental dwelling, giving the owner 15 days to file an appeal in this matter. The owner did not appeal the revocation action. At this time, the city is requesting revocation of this license, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Ms. Dowling. This item also looks like there were 4 instances in which the owner landlord just didn't show up. Is that correct?
Mr. Vice Chair, committee members, that is correct.
Thank you. Do you have any further questions for Ms. Dowling? Seeing none, I'll open up the public hearing here, and the same guidelines as before apply, where you can't introduce any additional testimony that hasn't already been brought forth to the hearing officer. Is the owner and/or the owner's representative here today? Is the owner or the owner's representative here today? Seeing that they are not here today, just based on this record, there's very little more that we can legally consider here as a committee, and I will move the staff recommendation for item number 8. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. That item is passed. Handing it back to Chair Goodman.
Thank you, Councilmember Fry. I'd like to just simply ask the clerk, have we acted on item number 9? Okay, I just want to note item number 9 is a consent agenda item with the MCDA Operating Committee. This is giving consent to refund the MCDA Bank Qualified Bank Direct Tax Exempt Revenue Bonds for the Friends School of Minnesota. I'm going to move approval of that staff recommendation. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item has been approved. We'll then move on to our discussion item. I'll note that I'm going to immediately move item number 14 to delete from the agenda until a number of additional issues have been worked out. Further comments or questions on item number 14? Seeing none, all in favor of deleting this from the agenda signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That item has been deleted. We'll then move on to item number 15, which is the Grow North program. Casey, welcome.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Before you today is just request to approve guideline amendments to the Grow North program, as well as authorize city staff to enter in a new contract with Greater Metropolitan Housing Corporation for the Minneapolis Advantage program as it relates to the Grow North tool specifically. Hopefully none of this is too controversial since you've already approved a loan to DC Group, so we'll make it brief. First of all, just the Grow North tool in general was developed last summer to really incentivize companies to bring jobs to North Minneapolis as part of our goal to bring 1,000 jobs to the community. There's 3 components to the program, 3 benefits. The first was a forgivable loan for capital improvements. Second was workforce training and recruitment assistance through our Minneapolis Employment and Training Program. And lastly, a home buyer down payment assistance program. The key changes to the forgivable loan piece are reducing the requirement for companies. It was originally set at bringing 75 jobs to North Minneapolis in order to achieve a $200,000 forgivable loan, and we're seeking to lower that to 40 jobs to qualify for the overall loan, recognizing after talking with several businesses and the community that 75 jobs is really a really aggressive target. But the nuance there is if they bring 40 jobs, they'll qualify for the loan, but in order to receive any amount of loan forgiveness, it's tied directly to new North Side hires. So that could be a North Minneapolis resident that they hire, or an existing employee that chooses to move to North Minneapolis. We would count that as well. So those are the big changes, and then related specifically to the North Minneapolis residents hires, or anyone that chooses to buy a home in North Minneapolis, they would qualify for up to $10,000 for down payment and closing cost assistance through the Minneapolis Advantage program. That would be set up as a 5-year forgivable loan to pay for closing costs, down payment, home repairs, and such. As Carrie mentioned already, we propose that the interest rate would be fixed at 4%, and then the max term of the loan would be 10 years. And then some other key elements of the Minneapolis Advantage program is, unlike other programs, there would be no income restrictions or home value restrictions to really open it up to a wider audience. So those are the key changes. I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Are there any questions for staff on item number 15? Seeing none, thank you for that report. I agree with everything you're doing. I especially think adding this component of having existing employees move to Northside is really great, and the partnership with Gimmick also is a really good thing. So these are really good changes in the right direction. Appreciate you bringing this forward. I'll move approval. Further comments, questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, that item is approved. We'll then move on to items 16, 17, and 18. Can we do those as a group, Mr. Carroll, or no? Am I doing something wrong? 16, 17, 18. Do you have all of those?
I have only the last one.
Ah, okay. Who has item 16? Who has number 17? Okay, Amy, come on up. Gosh, I thought we could do these all at once.
Thank you, Madam Chair, council members. Item number 17 is our annual request to you for recommendations to the Metropolitan Council's Livable Communities Demonstration Account Program and their Transit-Oriented Development Grant Program. And I just want to note that there is one amendment to the staff report, which I think you are receiving right now, and I'll describe that here in a minute. And these grant programs are capital sources for development projects. They can be used for sources like site improvements, infrastructure, utilities, that type of thing. And they're really geared towards development projects that are innovative and demonstrate kind of new techniques. Those are the types of projects that the Metropolitan Council likes to fund with these grant programs. Developers cannot apply for these funds directly on their own. They must apply through the city. And so every year we do a request for proposals in order to generate possible applications. We review those internally as staff and prepare a recommendation for you, which is in the report. And so I'd like to note that we are recommending 5 applications to be forwarded to the Metropolitan Council. And the first, for the regular LCDA program, we are recommending Broadway Flats. And then the change from the posted staff report is to also recommend the Mosaic Phase 2 project by the Ackerberg Group. Our other recommendations are for the TOD program, recommending Mill City Quarter, and then Aon's proposal to purchase the old Habitat for Humanity office building in Prospect Park and redevelop that. And then our final 5th recommended application is for a pre-development grant, and this is a pre-development planning type source that the Metropolitan Council makes available. We're recommending an application for schematic design for the East Downtown Park. And with that, some of the applicants are here if you have questions, or I can also answer questions.
Are there any questions for staff? Seeing none, thank you for your report. I'll move approval of item number 17. Further comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That item is approved. We'll go back to item 15. Mr. Frank, it's been a big day for you.
Yes. Madam Chair, committee members, my apologies. I'm here to ask the council to authorize grant applications to Hennepin County's Transit-Oriented Development Program and to authorize appropriate city officers to execute cooperative agreements for the county-funded projects. Hennepin County has made available up to $2 million in this year's solicitation, and the county has received 15 applications for funding, requesting a total of $6.1 million. 11 of these applications, 11 of the 15, are for projects located within the city of Minneapolis, requesting a total of $4.1 million. In recent years, the council has passed a resolution of support with ranking of the projects in Minneapolis, and the report and resolution before you recommends the same approach this year. I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
So I didn't see these as ranked.
In the staff report, there is a ranking, Madam Chair. Does it not appear that way?
No, it just appears that there's a whole list of items, but I did not review that as ranked.
So, Madam Chair, if you see where the project listing begins, it says Mosaic East. It says ranking and rationale immediately under that.
I see, okay. Let's see. Okay, I didn't have a chance to review the ranked order, so I'm going to move this forward without recommendation. I want to note that I personally believe, and I think my colleagues agree, that projects in impacted neighborhoods that involve affordable housing and/or high-end job creation should be ranked higher than those in non-impacted neighborhoods, and I intend to go through them and rank them in that order.
Understood.
Further comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll move this forward without recommendation. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That item is moved forward without recommendation. Thank you, David. We'll then move on to item number 18. Mr. Carroll, sorry about that. You've been patient.
Good afternoon. Before you, you have a hybrid staff report that addresses two different grant rounds. It deals primarily with the spring brownfield grant round. We're recommending 17 applications for 9 different projects. The spring brownfield round has a May 1 application deadline, which is coming up soon. As you may know, that involves applications that are going to deed the Met Council and Hennepin County all at the same time. All of the brownfield recommendations are based on staff review of pre-applications that were submitted by these projects. Many of these projects you've seen before, and they've been recommended for grant funding before. Some of them have had additional costs or additional phases of the projects, and they're seeking more environmental grant funding. So that's the first part of the staff report. The second part also deals with environmental grant funding. When Ms. Geisler was up here, she was talking about the Met Council's TOD grant round. The TOD grant round involves both development grants and also cleanup grants. They call the cleanup grants TBRA-TOD grants. We've included those in the staff report because of the similarity of the topics. We are recommending 2 projects, Downtown East and the Plymouth Building, to seek TBRA-TOD funding. There's a $1 million ceiling on grant applications under that program. There's a total of $3 million available in this round for that program. These applications have to be ranked. As the other TOD applications do, we're proposing that Downtown East be ranked first and the Plymouth Building be ranked second. All of the other 17 applications that are part of the regular spring brownfield grant round do not need to be ranked. None of the grantors require that. So with that brief commentary, I'll stand for questions, if any.
Are there any questions for Mr. Carroll on his ranked applications at the bottom of page 5 and then all of the other recommended applications at the top of page 5? Seeing none, I'll move approval of the staff recommendation. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That item is approved. Then we'll move on to our remaining item, which is a regulatory services item number 19, peer-to-peer company transportation services ordinance. Mr. Wilson, who is doing this presentation?
Madam Chair, I'll be giving a brief presentation. I think we only have 4 slides today. And I'm reporting back on the regional network companies, the TNCs, commonly also known as peer-to-peer transportation companies or rideshare companies. A couple common trade names in the industry are UberX and Lyft cars. They provide a transportation service similar to taxi cabs. I was asked 2 cycles ago to report back on our progress with making an ordinance amendment that will that we can use to allow legal operation of transportation network companies in the region. Our regional taxi cab task force has been working actively on that. We have met with both companies, UberX and Lyft, in the past couple of weeks. We are developing an ordinance proposal that is suitable for use by, we believe, all jurisdictions of this region. One highlight since last discussion was that UberX has provided a copy of their liability insurance and has allowed it to be analyzed by the State of Minnesota Insurance Commissioner and also 3 local insurance trade groups, and they are actively working on those reviews right now. The Insurance Commissioner has indicated that they will be able to get back to us with a report on this insurance by the end of this month. The regulatory concepts that we're building into our ordinance amendment will require a license for the transportation network company only. Unlike taxi cabs, it will not require a license for each individual driver or each individual vehicle. The drivers and vehicles will not be licensed, but they will be endorsed by the company. So this ordinance will require that the transportation network companies do a background check, criminal and driving record check of a certain quality, and do a certain vehicle inspection on each vehicle. Our proposal is to require commercial insurance be in effect anytime a transportation network company driver is active on the dispatch network. If they cannot agree to that, then our recommendation will be that they provide regular commercial insurance just like a taxi cab does now. The regulatory concepts continue. Transportation network company will be by prearrangement only. So that's with a smartphone application. This will leave a certain type of traditional taxi cab ride like street hails, taxi cab, waiting stands at hotels for licensed regular taxi cabs. As part of this, we're also working on a small vehicle transportation service alternative for those people that are must be accommodated by a wheelchair. And we're talking about an incentive program for the companies that want to provide that and some kind of surcharge for the companies who do not provide that service. So the remaining tasks right now are we are hoping that the insurance policy question review should be completed yet this month. We are looking at a financial analysis of license fees and other fees that will allow this to become a neutral cost recovery program. We're anticipating having to have stakeholder reviews with our local taxi cab company, tourist industry, the Meet Minneapolis folks, the hotel industry, and the transportation network companies themselves. And we'll schedule a public hearing for this City Council and this board's action, and then implementation. That concludes my report. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Councilmember Fry.
Thank you, Chair Goodman. Mr. Wilson, just a few questions just to clarify. So just because the city is not conducting either background checks or vehicular checks, that doesn't mean that they aren't taking place, correct?
Madam Chair, Councilmember Fry, that is correct. We're planning to implement standards that they will check to a certain caliber, and then there will be auditing by my staff, my inspectors, to go in and make sure that that's being done.
And so then we can implement standards that are at least equivalent to that which must be complied with by the taxi cab companies. We're correct, right?
Councilmember Fry, that is correct.
Okay. And then I think I've also heard some concerns just about the ability for a TNC company to use some of the meters, the parking meters. And my impression is that, well, it's a totally different business model, because you won't have TNCs that are just waiting online, for instance, outside a hotel, or waiting for a potential driver, because they do so via the application on the cell phone, right?
Madam Chair, Councilmember Fry, the regulatory concept that we're building into our code prohibits a TNC company from acquiring a passenger in any method except for through a smartphone application. So they could not stage anywhere, wait for customers in any way other than getting them through the application on the phone.
Okay. That makes sense. And then as far as safety goes, it's my understanding, I just want to check if this is your understanding as well, that if safety is registered as a concern via the app, via one of the customers that's actually used one of the ride-sharing approaches, that those drivers can be immediately off-boarded. Are you familiar with that?
Madam Chair, Councilmember Fry, yes, the technology exists for the transportation network companies to cut off, if you will, any driver at any time based on their company policy.
I have no further questions.
Okay, Mr. Wilson, what are the things that you think need to happen in order for us to move this forward for a public hearing? And what is your proposed timeline if it's not in 2 weeks?
Madam Chair, our goal was to reach an agreement with our entire region, the policymakers and regulators of the region, predominantly the City of St. Paul, the City of Minneapolis, and the Airports Commission. We have been working on this ordinance steadily for about 4 months, extremely hard in the last couple weeks. We are meeting Thursday of this week to hopefully finalize the amendment so that we have the policymakers, at least one representative from each area in agreement that this is the way to go. And then I'm hoping that the Insurance Commission will reply back to our questions by the end of this month. We've also given this insurance question to 3 local insurance trade groups and given them a goal of trying to get back to us by the end of this month. So if we were to set a public hearing on this, I would prefer to have it in 2 cycles from today rather than 1, so it makes it a little easier to coordinate meetings with our local taxi cab industry and the other people that are the stakeholders that are really involved.
So, Mr. Wilson, I'm just wondering about if we really want it to be a meaningful public hearing in front of the council, why wouldn't we do it sooner rather than later in order to get the feedback we need and delay 1 cycle if it's a total of a month that you need? I'm afraid what's going to happen is we're going to wait 2 cycles, then there's going to be a public hearing, then there's going to be a bunch of issues, and then it's going to be another 2 cycles before we actually come to some sort of conclusion. I think I would perhaps feel more comfortable to actually take the public hearing seriously and have it and let people get their issues out and then maybe have a cycle to address those issues. What do you think of that approach? By then, we would be within days of the Insurance Commission. We'd be within your timeline of the regional partners. We'd be within days of an answer from the Insurance Commissioner. And we'd give the taxi cab industry an opportunity to speak to us for some period of time in a public hearing. Otherwise, we have a month of working on it, and then a public hearing, and then we would only have 8 days from the committee meeting to the council meeting to work out any concerns that are brought up in a public hearing. What is your thought about that approach?
That's certainly a workable an option for me, and I can make that work.
I'm not suggesting we take it up in 2 weeks and vote in that cycle. I'm saying take it up in 2 weeks and have the public hearing and spend the next 2 weeks trying to work through some of the issues we hear at the public hearing to make it actually worth a public hearing rather than just a rubber stamp kind of public hearing. I'm interested in the committee members' point of view with regard to a schedule. If maybe first we'll start with someone other than Councilmember Fry. Councilmember Asami, what are your thoughts?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have, in my office, we have some grave concerns with this, especially with regards to the current taxi drivers and how it affects them. And we've been talking to some of the taxi drivers, and I think we actually were working on to review the way they're actually treated in terms of the city of Minneapolis. And this will become more of a burden on them and how they can make a livelihood. And I think that's something that hasn't been looked into so far. We've looked into UberX and how it works, but there are concerns that it will negatively impact the current taxi drivers who already find it very difficult or have a difficult environment within the city of Minneapolis to make a living or to make a
Right, so I understand that. That's, of course, going to be a concern, but are we not going to do this until those issues are addressed? They're operating already. So, I mean, it seems a little silly to say, let's now look at, I'm happy to have any group of you that would like review the taxi cab issues. Yeah. And we probably should have a group of people doing that with a fresh set of eyes.
Okay.
But we're not going to not do this until that happens. I guess they would probably be okay with it since they're operating already. As long as we're not stopping them from operating already.
But I think their concerns are not, that it's not addressed. We're looking at how, it seems from the taxi driver's point of view, and what we're getting is it's unfair on them because they have to pay licenses, they have to get inspections, and these operations don't have to do that. So it's easier for them. You know, they don't pay the licenses, they don't pay the inspections, they don't get ticketed. They have their own private, vehicles. They can use the meters. They can, So it seems from the taxi driver's point of view and from the taxi cab company's point of view, it's basically unfair, and that's what we need to look at. And nobody's addressed that so far.
So with regard to the timeline, what are your thoughts?
I don't mind the timeline, but what I would say is I think that element has to be put in before we move forward.
Anyone else want to chime in? Councilmember Quincy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I understand the interest in moving things forward as quickly as possible. That makes a lot of sense to me. But as I feel, as I'm hearing more conversations about this, I kind of am now of the mind that maybe we need to wait an extra cycle on this to allow the multi-jurisdictions questions and the insurance questions that were raised are kind of addressed before we roll it out as a rubber stamp. I don't want this committee or the public hearing to be a place of refinement of it and having a room full of people suggesting changes. I'd like to have that kind of fully baked before it's brought out to the public hearing. So that's what I'm thinking now, is that having stakeholder meetings and getting answers from those critical questions about insurance and other jurisdictions might make sense for a little more delayed breaks-on approach.
Councilmember Frye?
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with Councilmember Warsame that there are several important issues that need to be addressed, and perhaps there needs to be a sort of a large or small scale deregulation of how we handle taxi cabs right now. I guess my one main fear will be that, we've presently got Lyft and Uber that are operating largely illegally. So we have to find a way to move forward as expediently as possible. And while we need to move forward expediently and quickly, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't include as many people in the process as possible. So what I would offer is, so I think we're still kind of down to the question of the timeline. So I like Chair Goodman's approach, which is having a hearing in 2 weeks here in City Hall. I would also offer, and this would kind of be outside of sort of the legal framework of the city, but I would also offer to hold a meeting with Councilmember Warsame and any other interested parties that he may be in contact with out in the community as well, prior to the vote, which under Councilmember Goodman's approach would be in 4 weeks from today. Those are my thoughts. I guess I'm not ready to make a motion yet until I hear additional input.
Well, my thing has to do with transparency. So I want to make sure that everyone understands what the timeline is, everyone can be heard, and that it's not going on behind that door, but we're discussing it out here. So I personally think that the kind of public hearing when the decision's already been made is terrible. I think it's better to have a public hearing, hear from everyone who has a concern, and attempt to the best that we can to take another cycle and deal with those issues. Otherwise, if we just have a public meeting and Councilmember Frye and Warsame they hear it, but the rest of us are not hearing it. I'm not going to a separate meeting. This is the place to discuss that, and I just think it's better. It gives the folks on the Uber and Lyft side a sense of a timeline, which I think is important, and it gives the folks on the taxi cab side a really fair chance to be heard. And if what comes out of that is a smaller working group of, as Councilmember Frye said, not me, Mr. Roper, full deregulation of the taxi cab industry, I'm repeating Councilmember Frye's comment, not my own, then we need to move towards that, but we're not going to hold up the conversation with regard to ride sharing in order to get to that. We might need to get to something that's more aligned in that way, and I would be okay with that. So, Councilmember Frye, you get to decide. What do you want to propose for a timeline?
Yeah, first off, Mr. Roper, everything that we just said is off the record. That being said, yeah, I do think the mechanism, the business model that Lyft and Uber and all the other ride-sharing programs have provided, it can't exist under the same regulations that we presently have for taxi cabs. It can't exist. So as we move forward with this new business model, I do think it's important really important for it to be equitable. Now, with regard to the timeline, the motion that I would make would be to hold, or give notice, I guess, of a public hearing to happen in this meeting in 2 weeks, followed by a vote 2 weeks after that.
Yeah, so what Councilmember Fry's suggesting is setting a public hearing for the next meeting, which is April 29th, with a commitment to those who have concerns, that we'll listen to those concerns and see what we can do within another 2-week cycle. And if that ends up being a larger wholesale workforce look at what's happening with taxis, then we'll have to commit to that at that point. I don't think we'll have all these issues resolved in 2 weeks, but we need to move forward with a business that's already operating. We just have to accept the fact that this is happening, and the longer we delay in putting these kind of rules in place, the longer they're operating essentially illegally, and we don't want to have that happen either. So I understand Councilmember Fry's motion to set the public hearing for the 29th of April and to not take direct action on any proposal, but to come back in the following cycle with some sort of proposal to try to balance both of these issues. How does that sound? Mr. Wilson, is that workable for you?
Madam Chair, absolutely.
Okay. So on Councilmember Fry's motion to set the public hearing, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That item is approved. We have no further business on our agenda. I just want to check in with the clerk and make sure we've covered all issues. Seeing no further business before us, we are adjourned.